Hey everybody. Hey, today we are talking about the 400 years between the Old and the New Testament. To illustrate a point, I want to talk about a story from Daniel chapter 4. In Daniel chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He dreams about a tree in the middle of a giant field. And he says this tree, it was so great, there's all the birds in the area would build nests in it, and all the beasts of the field, the cows and cattle and all the animals would find shade under it, and everybody was fed from it. It was such a great tree. And then Nebuchadnezzar says, in my dream, I dreamed that somebody from heaven, a holy one, shouted out, "Cut it down." And then the tree was cut down, and there was no longer shade, and for 7 years the tree remained that way. And he calls for Daniel, because remember, Daniel had helped Nebuchadnezzar to understand some dreams in the past. So Nebuchadnezzar calls for Daniel, and he says, Daniel, tell me what does this dream mean? What's this dream all about? And Daniel says, I hate to break it to you here, but God says that he's going to humble you. He says, Nebuchadnezzar, you're like that tree. Nebuchadnezzar, he's ruler of the empire. And so the empire is taken care of by his orders. Food is given by his orders, and protection and all the care that goes. He's in charge of that. But God was telling Nebuchadnezzar, hey, I'm going to cut you down. Why was that? Well, that was because Nebuchadnezzar wasn't being humble. Nebuchadnezzar had opportunity to see that God was in charge, and yet he still continued to say, hey, I'm like a god. I'm so awesome. Look at me. I'm in charge of all these things. So Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, God's telling you, you need to humble yourself. Nebuchadnezzar did for a time. But then what happened? One day he went out on his balcony, the Bible says. He looked over his kingdom, and he literally sat there and said, wow, look at me. I'm so awesome. Look at what I've built. I really am like a god. In that moment, God humbled him. He brought him down low, and he made him believe that he was a cow. Nebuchadnezzar, the Bible says, continued to live like a cow for the next 7 years. Until the end of that, God restored him. He made him believe who he was. And he came back and was emperor, and he humbled himself before God, and he said, all glory needs to go to God. Daniel's God is the true God. Really great story. I encourage you to look that up if you ever have a chance. That's Daniel chapter 4. What's this have to do with the 400 years between the Old and the New Testament? Here's the deal. 400 years between the Old and the New Testament. That means 400 years of the Israelites waiting for a Messiah, right? The Old Testament, like we talked about last week, comes to an end with the people waiting for a Messiah. Waiting and not getting, and not hearing anything about it. No prophets came, no new revelation, no new understanding. God was silent for 400 years. He didn't send any information about the Messiah who was supposed to come. It's a long time to wait. Thinking about 2020 and 2021 here, seems like the world's crazy out of control, doesn't it? I bet when you're not hearing from God, like in those 400 years, it seems even more out of control. Even more like, what's going on? In those 400 years, empires came and went. People conquered the Jews. And all that time, they were still waiting for their Messiah. Here's the deal. Even when it seems like he's not, God's in control. God took care of the Jews through those 400 years. There's a pretty cool story about that the Jews celebrate even to this day that happens during those 400 years. They celebrate it. It's called Hanukkah. You may have heard of it. Wonderful, wonderful opportunity to celebrate God's provision. That happens in that. But ultimately, God's silent, but God was still in control. No matter how out of control things seem to be, God's in control. I brought up the story of Nebuchadnezzar to make that point. Nebuchadnezzar was ruler of the world. Could he be ruler of the world if God didn't let him be ruler of the world? No. In fact, God went out of his way to make that point. He really proved it. He proved it by making Nebuchadnezzar believe that he was a cow. If you believe you are a cow, you will find it very difficult to be a world leader. The Bible teaches us that all of our leaders are appointed by God, that they're put in place. They're not allowed to be leaders if God doesn't allow it. No matter how crazy things seem, God's in control. At any moment, God could make a ruler fall. He could make him be brought low, to lose his mind, to lose the ability to lead. God is in control of this world. We just have to trust him. We just have to say, God, I put my faith in you, and so I'll put my trust in you as well. Check out the Buck Denver videos that are coming out this week. Until next time, have a wonderful week, and God bless.